I had some of my dad's friends were like selling like old car parts on eBay, so they would tell me about that. And so I just figured that since there's so limited opportunities near me, that I need to figure out how to reach a bigger audience. And eBay, and then a little bit of Amazon FBA with like textbooks. That seems like clothes and textbooks are really the groundwork for a lot of people, and they were the same for me.
Hey, what's going on, everybody on YouTube and iTunes? Welcome back to another episode of the Raiken Profit Show. Today's episode number 26 with my main man, Zayne Fry. I believe he's 19 years old, so he's definitely a young guy. I realized how old I'm getting now at 30 years old, talking to this young gun. But yeah, he's been thrifting, selling on eBay for a couple of years. He's actually in New York, which he's 8 hours away, believe it or not. So he's super far up north. He's probably freezing his butt off as we speak right now, because I know I am here in Connecticut. But today we're going to be talking about thrifting. We're going to be talking about selling on eBay. And we're going to be hopefully providing really, really good content to help you out. So what's going on, Zayne? How you doing, man?
Good. How are you doing, Raiken?
Dude, I'm doing awesome. How cold is it over there, man, in New York right now?
I think right now we're at about 9 degrees. And that's, this is at noon, so that's full sun shining. It's 9 degrees. Usually in the morning right now it's in the negatives.
Well, I'll tell you, man, as a, as a thrifter, as an eBay seller, I mean, you could hit the road, man, and, start traveling and doing some sourcing. Have you ever thought of that or done that before?
I've traveled within New York. I've gone down to like Buffalo, Syracuse, some of the bigger hubs. I have family down there, so I try to make like maybe a week out of it, go down there, hit some shops, stay with some family. But it is hard to escape the cold up here. But where I live, it's not very populated. Where I'm a very rural area, so not many thrift stores around me. So usually I do travel about at least an hour away to do some bigger shopping trips.
Wow, I've got a friend of mine. I'm actually interviewing him in a couple hours. I think he has to travel, I think it's like 3 hours or so to get to like his nearest thrift stores. He said he's literally in a town where there's like one stop sign and there's like not even lights or anything. So it's just pretty crazy for the people who are watching. I know there's a lot of people watching from Houston and even in Connecticut and, areas of Florida, California, where they are just blessed with like literally my friend. I don't know if you follow the Bonafide Hustler on YouTube, but he must have 20 thrift stores in like a couple mile radius.
I don't have that privilege.
It's just absolutely crazy. But in any event, we got Zayne on right now, young guy, reseller, eBay seller. Let's kind of talk about your story and everything and kind of how you got started with selling on eBay and thrifting.
Yeah, so it all started about maybe 2.5, 3 years ago. I started selling locally on Craigslist, on Facebook groups before the Facebook Marketplace was a thing, like just before that.
Right.
I did a lot of electronics just because, like, being the younger kid of the family and always being around technology, I kind of knew how to repair things, or if I saw something I knew it was a good price, I could resell it locally and all that. So at the time I wanted to build my own computer, so I needed to raise money for it. So I started selling iPhones and computers and stuff like that, and eventually got that, and eventually I just moved on to eBay.
That's cool, man. So you started locally. That's actually how I started as well. And I was flipping bicycles on Craigslist, and it's great because you get to keep the cash, right? You don't have to worry about all the different nuances that go along with selling on eBay with, taxes and accounting and 1099s and everything. So that's cool, man. So how long were you succeeding with the local marketplace until you got into eBay, you said?
So I was on just local for maybe like 6 to 8 months. And like I said, we don't have a lot of people around us, and that's why I focused on iPhones, because it seems like at some point or another, everybody wants an iPhone or any cell phone, really. Everybody wants to upgrade, or somebody breaks it, somebody needs a present. So even in a spot where you don't have a lot of people, there's those certain items that are always just going to be able to sell. And I thought that, electronics were really one of those, and there was a niche category that you could really master.
So what was your strategy? Like when I was doing bicycles, I would just literally sit on Craigslist and, I did a lot of research in terms of what were profitable brands like Trek and Cannondale and stuff. And then I would try to find an undervalued bicycle and I would just contact the seller immediately. What was your strategy with the iPhones? Like specifically, what were you looking for? Was it a certain model? Were they broken? Did you want to repair them? Were they new?
Right. Well, I guess the perfect situation for everybody is, a current one that's in great condition that you don't have to do anything with, right? And it's at a great price and you can just buy it. But realistically, that doesn't happen too often. I tried not to get with too many broken ones just because that's more of a time investment and you try to, minimize your time in the item. So I would just go on, wait for somebody to put one at almost the price I wanted, and then just try to work them down a little bit. Never try to lowball too much because then you completely cut off contact with that person. Yeah, they don't want to talk to you if you go way too low. But I always just had, an iPhone 6. Like that was the one I've sold the most of. And for the past like 2 years, it's been like, as long as I buy it at price X, I will be able to sell that Y like almost within a week every time. And then oh, sorry.
Oh, keep going.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, as people start to know you, and like, since I was still in like high school at the time, a lot of kids, they'd be like, "Here's my old phone because my parents just got me a new one," or vice versa. I need a new phone, so that always helps making connections like that.
So for the iPhone 6s, and obviously over time, I'm sure the value goes down as new phones come out, I'm assuming. Let's talk about some of the numbers that you would focus on. Like, let's talk about maybe like a common scenario of what maybe they would be asking for, and then you would negotiate it down to, and then how much you would sell it for and the profits and whatnot.
Right. So I would always, with an iPhone 6, it's harder to get $200 for them now just because like we're on the 8/10 now. So, but for the past like 2 years, it's really been like I could consistently get people to sell them for about 150. If I saw that they listed it really soon, I was like, I'd just work them down to about 150. Maybe there's some scratches on it that I would point out or ask how old it actually is. Just some things that, even though they might not terribly wear down the item, it does show a little bit of wear. So once I got it down to 150, I could sell for 200, and making $50 locally within a week is always, that could almost happen every time I had one.
So you weren't actually putting it on eBay. You were selling it. You were buying local on Craigslist, and this was before the Facebook Marketplace, and then you were flipping it. Was it Craigslist as well you were flipping it on?
Yeah, usually it was Craigslist to Craigslist, or just like, the garage sale groups got kind of big locally, and then even with the small area I'm in, they might have like 20,000 people in that. And the power of those Facebook groups is that once you post something in there, everybody gets a notification. Like the next time you get on, it says, Zayne posted something. So even if it doesn't say an iPhone, you'll still click on it, and then, reaching that many people is so much, it just gets so many people active on your listing.
So I know times always change, I always say if you're going to continue to do what you're doing today, next year it might not work. Actually, there's a good chance it probably won't work. You always got to be adjusting and changing with time in business. How do I put it? Is this strategy still working, flipping phones and whatnot, or is it changed? Is it different? With all these different, platforms emerging, OfferUp, Facebook Marketplace, different things like that. Is the game changed? Can people still make money with that?
Yeah, you absolutely still can make money. My one rule is always the price you're buying at, you should always set off of eBay prices, right? You should be able to resell it on eBay with the fees and still get your money back. So I kind of gauge the market based on eBay and then move that to local because, with the fees, I can kind of undercut eBay a little bit because that's what a lot of people like to do locally. They're like, oh, well, I could go buy it on eBay right now for X price. I've heard that so many times. So I try to keep it below there, and I try to gauge the market off of the online sales. But with technology, obviously, it's always changing, and you have to kind of keep up to date with it. Luckily, since my age group, we're usually pretty on top of whatever technology is going on. So I just kind of can evolve with it, and just gauge the market on the online sales.
That's cool, man. So before we move on to thrifting and selling on eBay, because I know your business kind of transitioned over there. A lot of people are concerned, Zayne, with safety of, peer-to-peer, local buying and selling. Have you ever had any weird situations? Because I've found that selling certain items tends to bring a certain type of crowd, good or bad. Have you had any instances where there was sketchy people or someone trying to rip you off, or maybe you feared your safety or anything like that, or no?
I haven't had too many. I definitely have weird experiences, but nothing too sketchy or scary. When it comes to technology, though, a lot of people try to sell like devices that have passwords on them, and you have to know how to check for that. You should definitely do research before you invest, like $150, $200 in a phone. of how to check for a password, how to check for an iCloud lock, because I've definitely had that happen. But a good thing to say is you don't know, like I bought that, I don't know if that's stolen, so you can tell that person that, and
Wow.
they usually then respond to that because it's like it can become like a legal issue if somebody sold you a stolen piece. So that you have to kind of check for. But personal experiences of like going out and peer-to-peer meetups, I've had definitely some weird experiences. You go on some back road. I remember one time picking up like a bunch of computers because some guy's girlfriend was making him throw them all out. That was a weird experience, but it was fine. I've never actually been in any bad situations, I would say. My parents were a little weary about it when I first started because I was like barely 16, just got my license, and I was like driving all around to meet these people for different things. So, but once I showed that I could, make some money off of it, they eventually were okay with it.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So I think, like Zane mentioned, I think it's a great opportunity to make money locally. I feel like, it's a little more challenging, right? Because you actually have to physically go out, meet people, do things like that. And I think that brings a lot of opportunities. I think a lot of people kind of gravitate more towards eBay and Amazon. So I think local buying and selling is a great way to kind of get started. So you had success with the iPhones and electronics, buying and selling locally. Now, what made you get into selling on eBay, and how did you discover like eBay and thrifting? Because I mean, we all know about eBay, but how did you actually know that there were opportunities to make money, selling on eBay on a consistent basis?
Yeah, so I kind of just got into the whole like, okay, what am I doing with this? And I figured out that it was called reselling and flipping and all that. And I eventually got onto, I'm big on Reddit, and Reddit has a huge reselling community, r/flipping. They give great help. If you're more into reading than watching the videos, that is a great spot for it. Then I started watching the old green room hangout videos where you just interview people, and I'd be like in the library at school listening to that while I was doing my work. So I started figuring that out. I had some of my dad's friends were like selling like old car parts on eBay, so they would tell me about that. And so I just figured that since there's so limited opportunities near me, that I need to figure out how to reach a bigger audience. And eBay, and then a little bit of Amazon FBA with like textbooks. That's seems like clothes and textbooks are really the groundwork for a lot of people, and they were the same for me.
So did you go big into selling clothing at first with eBay?
I dabbled in it really just like slightly. I remember one day I was like, all right, I'm putting $200 in my bank account and I'm going to start reselling online with that. Like if I lose all that $200, I'm done. And if I keep growing, I keep growing. And that was like 2 years ago. So it's worked out since then.
So what was that like when you had first gotten started? You had that $200. Were you going out to thrift stores and buying clothing on half off days, or were you very like what was your strategy to spend that money? Because that's not a ton of capital to get started with, and I feel like a lot of people can probably relate and are probably in the same shoes as you.
Yeah, so I remember the first day I started out with $200 to go resell. Weirdly enough, I started with the Amazon FBA trip. So like that was probably not the smartest use of my capital at first, and I realized that very quickly. But luckily the items I bought had sold really quick. And then I had some local like charity thrift stores around me where everything's like $1 or 50 cents. And I started there with just like a couple items and worked my way up to the inventory I have today.
So how much inventory do you have now?
Now I hover in the between like 2 to 250 range, but it seems like I just keep like selling it and bringing it back down to about 200 and then bringing it back up. I try to have a pretty good mix of items that are going to sell, that like slow nickel or fast dime. I try to keep it somewhere in between. So some of the old expensive items sell every month, and then some of the quicker, cheaper items still sell every month.
Right. No, I definitely agree with that too. And some of the slower items, they take a little bit of time, but they could pop for 50, 80, $100. And that kind of helps. A lot of people who are new on eBay, I actually talked about this the other day. They're always wondering, should I go buy it now or auction? And I notice a lot of new people go with auctions, and they go with they'll start it at like a penny and whatnot. What are your thoughts in terms of the best way to list your items in terms of formats on eBay? What worked for you?
So what worked for me is buy it now, but I think that's totally dependent on your situation. Like, so I live in an apartment and I use like a very small size bedroom to keep all my inventory in. So if I had a size space smaller than that, I'd have to do auctions to try to just get money rotating and, items in and out. And I think that if you know your item and if you know the price it goes for, buy it now is usually the best way to go. I know because I think of myself, if I was the buyer, I don't like doing auctions just because if I
Right.
find an item I really want, I want to be able to buy it right then.
Yeah.
I think that, in the moment buying is a lot of the items I sell, since a lot of them are under $60. It's mostly like, well, I don't need a new pair of shoes or a new hat, but I would like one, so I want it right now.
Yeah, I was just shopping for, and I've never like, it's funny, I've always sold clothing on eBay, but I've never really shopped for it. But, I'm getting into these like designer t-shirts that I really like from Armani. Like I really love them. Like they fit perfectly. Like I love it, but I don't want to spend, $139.99 at their Armani store. So I measured the one that I had and I went on to eBay to look for it. And there were like 4 or 5 sellers and all of them were like auctions, right? And I'm like, I don't want to wait. Like I don't want to bid on these things. And a lot of them didn't include measurements. How important is it to include measurements in your listing? And what are some of the other things that are important to put in your listing that you feel like a lot of people don't do?
Well, I've always said, on my channel, I've heard a lot of people say it too. It's the items kind of will sell itself, right? Whatever item, if you have a Burberry suit jacket or, blazer, that's obviously going to do well. But once you should always include, a pit to pit and a top to bottom measurement, just because those are the most common ones. Sometimes you'll get weird measurements you have to do, like on a pair of jeans, like how wide's the knee, or, you'll get weird measurements
Yeah.
that you can't guess ahead of time. So always
Right.
try to give the most information you can. Your first picture is your most important picture because that's what people's eyes are going to catch. You don't need a full setup with a mannequin and all this other stuff. I put items on the floor right now and just do flat lays, and my items still sell just as well as when I was hanging them up. So as long as that first picture is good and you can get as many keywords in as you can, that's why I always tell new people, I'll have family members that'll be like, I want to sell my stuff on eBay. And I'm like, just get as many keywords in because you don't know how somebody is going to search for your item.
It's true. If you guys are enjoying this show so far, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And if you're not already subscribed to Zayne, check out the first link down below. Zayne Fry is his YouTube channel. He's got a lot of cool content over there. And like I said, he's a young guy growing his channel. So definitely go over there and, give him some support. But Zayne, I want to ask you about research. How do you know what to buy and what to sell? Let's kind of go back again to when you had that $200 and you were transitioning from Craigslist to eBay. How did you know what clothing items to buy, or, even other categories? Like, were you researching the sold listings, or were you guessing? We talk a lot about experimenting with different things. What was your process for kind of researching and then investing your money into it?
Yeah, so the biggest investment I think you can get is your time and research on YouTube. Is just a great place for it. You have a lot of old videos that are great on it. Bonafide, Hearts Pickers, like all those people just have great. Just watch the videos that are like, this is what sold, and then this is what I like. This is my haul video. Watching those and then seeing people sell them for certain prices is some of the best research you're going to get. And then sold listings is as well. Just even if you're doing it while you're in the thrift store when you're first learning, if you pick up a shirt and you see that, just read the tag. Try to get a percentage, like, this many sold, and then, this many completed, then this many sold. The higher that percentage, the better your item is going to be, and then make sure that, thin versus thin markets, is there a lot of people actually shopping for something? It seems like it's a lot, but once you get those core brands down,
Right.
and those, that you can just skip over, you know how to skip over just some shirts. Or, it comes with time, but eventually, you'll be able to expand by knowing the old brands and then finding new brands.
Yeah, it definitely becomes like kind of like an intuition after a while. Like it's easy after a while, but it's, just like anything, when you first get started, like when you got first started with the cell phones, it's hard, right? When you get started with clothing, like it's hard, but over time, like it'll definitely come to you. One big mistake I notice a lot of eBay beginners make is they buy anything and everything with a profit. It might have a $3 profit. It might even have a $15 profit, but there's no market for it. What is kind of like your advice in terms of like minimum profit when someone's kind of just getting started selling on eBay? Should they have a minimum profit or not, or a maximum profit? I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, when you're first starting, I think that getting a high volume of items out just to get your feedback up is really important. Just because a lot of people look at that and a lot of people trust the feedback system, even if it's not the best system. So I think that if in the beginning that's a good thing, but I try not to get anything that's going to make me less than $10. I think that's really really a good marker to be like, it's going to make me more than $10. If it's, I mean, I guess if you know it's going to sell super quick, you can get closer to that $10 mark because it's going to be in and out. But I try to always, just always try to buy at your lowest price. But if you're buying and selling buying from a Goodwill outlet where you're getting things super cheap, then you can definitely go the auction route and do a very high amount of items with a very low average profit, and then probably still equal what those other people are making that are selling suits and blazers.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree. I see a lot of people, they buy so much stuff, they can't even handle listing it. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to lie. There was a time I had probably 300 items I didn't list. Like, I was just buying. I was like a maniac. How do you get into a listing routine? Because, they always say you make your money when you buy, which is true, right? Because you get your profit baked in. But you can't realize those profits, Zane, until you actually list it. How do you get yourself actually listing? Because it's fun to go on treasure hunts. It's fun to go to thrift stores. But how do you get your butt to actually work?
Well, I would say the biggest thing is if you have a small space, death piles add up really quickly. You'll start tripping over stuff, and it really brings your space down to a minimum. I did a video of where I cleaned my whole inventory area, and it just opened up the whole floor. I had so much to walk around. It was really nice. I try to really, I'll go to like maybe a couple thrift stores in a day, bring all that home, and I'm like, I'm not going back until all this stuff is listed. No matter what my schedule is, no matter if there's a half off day, try to get what you have listed, because if it's just sitting on your floor, it's not going to make you any money, and the more time it's up, the more eyes it's going to grab.
Do you list with your phone or do you list with a camera?
With my phone, I felt just taking pictures in the app is the easiest way to go. I did, yeah, it's so much easier, and then so I take pictures on my phone. Yeah, it's really streamlined. And then I don't do anything else on my phone except for add the inventory number right when I do that. And then I have a computer, a small laptop on the side. I type in like how much I bought it for, what the inventory number is, and then the rest of it I finish on my desktop.
That's cool. So you put an inventory number. How do you organize your inventory, and how does that all work out with your inventory number and everything?
Yeah, so my laptop I have like a kind of a different safety measures to make sure I don't actually lose an item. So it goes in on my laptop on like a Google spreadsheet, so I can check it anywhere I am. It's in the cloud. So nice. I check it there, put in the price, how much I bought it for, so that when I sell it, I can see how much I made. I keep not the craziest spreadsheet, but I do like to see how much I make every month and how long something sat for. So I type in there, it's just a bin system, D15 goes in the D bin, and then once I do a listing, I type in, I don't put it in the title just because it uses up too many characters, but I put I put it in the description box, just, all of your stuff. And then as a buyer, I don't think anybody really cares that it says inventory, whatever it is, A12. They just see that and figure that is something that a seller is using to keep track of their stuff. So it just goes into a bin. And then once the item sells, the inventory number comes like back into rotation. So if if A12 sold, then A12 is just a new item that I get next time, so that I can keep my bins full and I know how many are in there.
It's so important. I remember when I first got started, I think I was up to, I can't believe I'm going to say this, probably up to like a couple 300 items in my inventory. Dude, I was living at home at my parents' house, and I remember one time my mom walked in my room and she just shook her head like, what's wrong with you? Because I just looked like a freak. Like, it was just like so many clothes all over the place. I had no inventory system. I started selling like 10, 15 items a day, and I would literally, there was like times I could not find the item. I just couldn't find it. And, if you're getting started, just start with an inventory system. Like, just start, even if you have 10 items, because day is going to come. Have you ever lost an item?
I've never lost an item. I have come close, but I've never actually lost one because I didn't start with an inventory system. I implemented one because I was dealing with such few amount of items because of my area. But then I went on a shopping trip to Buffalo where I bought I filled my car on a trip down to Buffalo. Came back and was like, this is when I need to do an inventory system. There's no way I can keep track of all these items. So I implemented the inventory system, but I still have some of those old clothes that aren't in the inventory system, and they're just like on top of a shelf. So every once in a while, I'll just go to my listing and I'll check the description. If it doesn't have a number, I just have to say, I hope it's in there. I still don't have an inventory system for shoes. I just kind of put them on the rack. But I figure that those are easier to spot, the ones that
Yeah.
actually sold. If you have like a bright pair of sneakers, you can pretty much see those on your rack. Once you get to maybe over 100 listings of shoes, then it might get hard. But I'm not at that point yet.
Yeah, and then if you have like 7 or 8 Johnson and Murphys, like I'm sure it could get confusing. So yeah, cool. So you sell clothing, you sell shoes. What other types of items do you sell in your eBay business?
So that's kind of like my bread and butter now is those, and I still do iPhones. I try not to do them on eBay too much just because the returns can get really
Oh,
painful.
really?
Yeah, because I could send something out, and then there's all you want to add signature confirmations on those just because you don't want anything to go wrong there.
Oh, yeah.
From being a buyer of iPhones on eBay, there's just a lot of problems that sometimes might overlook. Somebody might think the back is a little bit more scratched than the picture showed. So I really try to keep those local and try to keep the returns down. And then I've tried recently to kind of expand more, and I've gotten into, the things that sell out quick, the items like, your Supremes, there's other brands like, the Yeezys, Palace, these items I've tried to get into a little bit as well.
So are you buying those from retail stores?
I'm buying those like on the drop. So like Supreme during like, let's say their season drops
Right.
every Thursday at 11. So if I'm not in school, like my schedule works around it, I'll be at the computer at 11, try to get like one thing and then try to resell that.
Wow, so that's interesting because I'm not very familiar with that market right there. So when you say you're getting on the computer at 11, are you trying to buy from the online store?
Yeah. So basically with Supreme, how it works is when it drops at 11, the highest, most sought after items are sold out within 30 seconds. So you have to be there.
Really?
Yeah, you have to be there at like 10:59. You have to know the one item you want, or if you are really quick, the 2 items you want, check out really quick, and then just hope that you get them.
Hope that the checkout, does the checkout ever go through and then they send you an email like sorry, or like if it checks out, you're good typically?
Yeah, I actually had a really, so 2 weeks ago they did a collaboration with the North Face. These are like, if you search the North Face on eBay and look at the
Oh my
highest sold
gosh.
items, the Supreme items go for crazy amounts of money, especially the older ones.
Always.
So 2 weeks ago they did a release. They dropped the North Face thing. I got one of the jackets at 11 o'clock. I bought it for $440. At 11:30, I sold it for $1,000. So like within half an hour, I sold it for $1,000. So
What?
yeah,
Where?
I
On eBay?
I actually sold it with these items. If you follow the right accounts, like these big like people that are in this market,
Like
they'll say
Instagrams?
like, yeah, on Instagram. So on Instagram, they'll say use this post as like a buy sell thread. So I just posted that I had it. I said I want to sell it. So I sold it through Instagram or basically through PayPal. So the fee percentage was only 3%. So I sold it half an hour later for $1,000. And so they sent me email confirmation. They charged my credit card. They sent me a shipping number. And like 6 days later, they said that they couldn't ship the item because
No.
they thought they had enough, but because they're getting thousands of orders processed like in like an hour or even within like 10 minutes. They're getting thousands of orders. So I lost that. I had to refund them, but I mean it just shows you that the market is there, right? I bought it and sold it within half an hour and I ended up making like over $400. But they did end up canceling it just because they ran out of stock.
So you mentioned Supreme. Do you have to have, like, for example, a guy like me who I know Supreme sells for a lot, but I don't really know, like, to be honest, anything about like what's hot or what's not or what's trending. Do you have to have like a really good knowledge of the brand and like what's trending in order to get in that game, or is it kind of a guessing game?
It's a little bit of both. You kind of sometimes have to guess what's going to sell for a lot. Maybe like a certain color is going to sell more than other ones. They have certain items that, like this is a Supreme hat right here. These don't resell for crazy amounts of money just because they're not that sought after. There's things like they have like their box logo hoodies, the ones that just say Supreme right here. They have, I actually brought a sticker. They have this sticker, this like kind of logo like right here on the chest. Those ones dropped last week, if I remember right. Those dropped at $200, and right after they were selling for over $1,000. So like within, yeah. So you do have to do a little bit of research and see what items are selling for a lot. But when they do certain collaborations like the North Face, or they release things that just say Supreme on them, those usually do go for pretty good money.
I've always wondered why Supreme sells for so much. What's the reason behind it? Is it really high quality, or is it just the brand recognition, or?
They are of a certain quality, but I wouldn't consider them high quality. It's definitely the brand recognition, and it's the fact that if you don't get it right then, if you want it, the people who already bought it control the market. So they can set, a price, and then they can, manipulate that price. It's also a lot of celebrity influence. That's how the Yeezys got big, right? Kanye West
Yeah.
is the designer of them, and then certain celebrities wear them, and then once that happens, everybody wants them. So Supreme, they could definitely become a store that sells just high end stuff, but they want to create that hype around it where if you're not there, if you don't get it, people camp out for days to get stuff. So it's that marketplace that artificially drives the price up.
Cool, man. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. It's just amazing. Every time I interview somebody new, I always get these gold nuggets, and I'm sure people who are listening are like, "Wow, like there's so many ways to make money offline. It's just absolutely insane." So, Zayne, again, for the folks who aren't already subscribed to Zayne, be sure to go down, first link down below, give him a subscribe and follow him. He's got a lot of really good content. But we're at the last leg of the show, and I want to kind of go through some rapid fire questions right here. Maybe, less than 30-second responses. Are you up for that?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's go for that. All right. So, what do you think is if you had to only choose one category of best products to sell on eBay, what would you choose?
I would say clothing just because when you walk in a thrift store, that's the most amount of items, and that's what you're going to consistently get. You might not get the craziest profit, but there is money to be made, and if you search through them, you're always going to find, anytime you go to a thrift store of a decent size, you're at least going to find one thing you can make money on.
What do your friends and family think about what you do with like thrifting and eBay and Craigslist?
So at first, like every step of the way, my parents are like, "Oh, are you sure you want to invest your money there? Are you sure you're gonna be able to do it?" But then I make money, and then they see that I can actually make money doing it, so they've become okay with it. I've sold some stuff to my friends. Like I'll find old, cool vintage items that I'll sell to my friends. They were at the same thing at first. So like you just go to thrift stores and then buy stuff and sell it. Like, yeah, you don't understand like the high end brands that people just donate, and then I'm able to make money on.
Yeah, it's insane. It's actually pretty crazy when you think about it. What's your number one tip for finding more profitable items at thrift stores?
I've always said, people like you say that I just get lucky finding these brands, but then if they were actually to come with me, they would see that I'm there. Like I go every week and I search for hours. It's not about luck; it's about persistence. The more you go out, just the more you're gonna find. Don't burn yourself out. Don't go to the same store like 3 times a week if they don't restock their items, right? If you're finding the same items all the time, that means they're probably not restocking that often, but go enough that you are able to get a good, rotation of items.
Every now and then I talk to somebody who they say you can't make money at thrift stores. There's no deals there. What do you think is the most common reason why people aren't finding items at thrift stores?
I think they don't know brands because if I had just gone to, like, I had been to thrift stores before I started reselling, but like, what did I know about the brands that were in there? Unless I saw like a Gucci or a Louis Vuitton, like those items that obviously stand out, you wouldn't know that, there's like a Lacoste polo for $4 that you can resell, or just those simple brands that, are considered more bread and butter. I think a lot of people skip over those because they don't want to do the research to find out what's the best.
What's one thing that you selling on eBay and thrifting and one thing you hate?
I guess the one cool thing is that when I'm out there, I often find cool items for myself. Like you go out there, you make some money, you buy like 10, 15 items that are going to make yourself some money, and then you find like one cool piece for yourself, and then you kind of like I've built a hat collection that is too much at this point because that's like one thing I always like to go for is to find like some cool hats. But and then one downside about it is when you find the item that you're like, this is going to sell for so much, and then it sits and you're just looking at it, especially when it gets like a lot of watchers and viewers, and it's going to sell, but it sits for a while, and you start thinking, did I make a bad buy? Should I not use this brand? But I know I've sold it in the past, so that can definitely eat away at you.
Let's talk about what's it take to kind of get this business going. If someone want to start making money, let's just say they want to get to the point where they're making an extra $200-300 a month profit. How much time do you think it would realistically take for someone to get to that point?
In the beginning, it definitely takes a lot of time because you have to do the research, definitely watch videos, you have to do sold listing research, all of that. But as time goes on, you get more away from the research and more into the making money because you end up knowing your brands and you can sell them a little bit faster. Your listing techniques get faster. You can take pictures faster, all that. So as long as you set to a schedule and say, I want to do this, you should be able to learn relatively quickly, and then your items will start selling if you buy those right brands.
Nice. I agree. Biggest mistake that you think you've made in your reselling career so far over the last couple of years, something you think back, or maybe it's a regret, or you wish you had started it sooner. Anything come to mind?
I jumped into just buying stuff, and I think a lot of people do that. They're like, all right, I've done a little bit of research, I should go out, but I have a lot of old brands that I should just auction off and get away from. I should, I've been thinking about doing an inventory clean out just because some of the things when I first started selling were like okay, but I've just moved into just such better items now. I've been able to comb through, this shirt style isn't the best, even though it comes from a good brand. So just not having the best knowledge when I first started out, and I think that goes for everybody, you just become better as you go along. So if I could just like cut out those first like 20 items that maybe still like clunk around in the inventory room, that would really be helpful.
Dude, I definitely feel you on that, man. I probably had more like 100 items that just sat and sat and sat and sat. I ended up just like donating a lot of them away because I couldn't even get rid of them auction. But it's part of the learning experience. Final last question or two. What are your thoughts on the future of thrifting and selling on eBay? Do you think it's something that's going to be sustainable, something that's going to be around in 5 or 10 years? Because I've got a lot of great things to say about thrift stores, but I also know that there's been a lot of changes as well. Like just over the last 3 years, like I've noticed substantial changes in thrift store prices and even opportunities. What are your thoughts? Again, it might differ based on location. There's no wrong answer, but what are your thoughts on sustainability of thrifting to eBay?
So I definitely think thrift stores have gotten more popular in the past couple of years. A big increase I saw was after Macklemore put out the song Thrift Store. Like a lot of people just went and did that, and now people are starting to learn that there is money to be made here. Especially like a lot of people like to go after those vintage items because they know there's money to be made on like the 90s clothing right now. So I think sustainability wise, there is chances to, keep this going for the next couple of years, but I'm definitely not putting all my hands in that cookie jar. I'm definitely trying to spread out and make sure that if, thrift stores aren't the best profit anymore, if the prices go up a couple dollars, that I definitely have other ways to make money.
Any other opportunities within like the e-commerce space or just making money online? Anything with the internet? Any other, cookie jars your hands looking to go in over the next couple of years or so?
So one cool one I actually started just getting into with the Supreme and Yeezys and stuff like that is actually called StockX. So it's basically a stock market for sneakers and like there's handbags. The only thing that resellers like, traditional us would, kind of find trouble in is that items have to be brand new in the box or in the plastic. But the one good thing about StockX is that it's like it is a stock market where I can set a buy price that I want to sell something to, but people are always making bids. So if I have something just sitting around, I need money, it goes, I sell it, I can go right to this how much somebody wants to buy it for, and I can sell it to them right then. Automatically takes the money out of their account, and I ship it to the company. They authenticate it, verify it, make sure it's real, and then send it to the customer. So that one is really cool in the fact that I don't have to, some items I don't have to sit on. Like for example, I have just a Supreme beanie coming in, just like a winter hat. And I bought it for $50, and on there right now it's going for a little over $100, just a hat, which is crazy to think about. So instead of, if I could list it and try to get a little bit more money, but if I want to fall back right on that like $100 mark, I can just choose to sell it to that person that put a bid in, and I can have the money, within a week.
Cool, man. StockX. That definitely sounds exciting. And last but not least, Zayne, final words of wisdom for the people who are watching. Maybe they're getting excited about thrifting or StockX or just selling on eBay. Any advice you'd give to somebody out there?
Definitely my advice is don't go in too fast. Do your research. It's fun to get out there and start shopping and find that profitable item right off the bat. But do your research. Make sure it's a good brand. And don't burn yourself out, because you can definitely go shopping too much in the beginning, think that you're having a lot of fun, and then like a year in, just dredge going to the thrift store. If you can bring other people with you to make it more fun, do that. If you have friends that maybe they just want to buy for themselves, and then you're secretly going through all the shirts to find, a good brand, just don't burn yourself out and stay persistent. As long as you keep listing items will keep selling.
Hey, it's so true. Consistency is key. So, Zayne, thanks again for coming on. Again, for the folks who maybe you joined during the mid show or whatnot, be sure to check out his YouTube channel, Zayne Fry. Links will be down below. Anywhere else people can follow you or connect with you?
So yeah, I do all that reselling stuff on there at Zayne Fry. That's where I put up a lot of content. I've also recently started one just talking about Supreme and other brands. Like I discuss what's coming out that current week to see
Cool.
what the items are that are good. And that one's just at Z Fry. So no Zane, just Z Fry. On there I do some of the like haul videos, but those are more considered unboxings because I get them in the mail. So
Sure.
over there I discuss what's hot this week and what's dropping and all that.
Awesome, man. So again, links will be down below. If you guys are watching on YouTube, be sure to smash that like button, subscribe for more videos. If you guys are listening to the podcast on iTunes, continue listening for more and more videos. And if you like the podcast, be sure to leave an honest feedback. We'd definitely appreciate that. But Zayne, thanks again for coming on, man. Keep up the good work over there on your YouTube channel. And hopefully we can have you on maybe mid-2018 to get an update on your business.
That'd be great. Thanks, Raiken.
Hey, thanks for coming on, Zayne. Talk soon.